Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, November 21st, 2023, and this meeting of Lake Oswego City Council is now called to order. Ms. Linder, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Buck,
Here.
Councilors Winland,
Here.
Mbu,
Here.
Councilor Burdick is here and will be joining us shortly. Councilor Raff,
Here.
Councilor Afghan,
Here.
and Corrigan. Here.
Thank you. Now, everyone, will you please stand and join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, this is the time on our agenda for public comment. Do we have anyone here who would like to provide public comment? I only see our team in the, no. Okay, doesn't look like it. In that case, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have item 5.1. This is approval of meeting minutes from October 3rd and October the 17th. Item 5.2, this is Ordinance 2937. It's an ordinance of the City Council clarifying, revising, and updating LOC 10.02.050 severability, LOC 38.16.170 utility code discontinuation of service, LOC 38.18.305 utility code connection required, LOC 39.06.081 system development charge connection, LOC 42.03.130 access spacing and site distance for roadway intersections, LOC 42.03.131 clear site triangle, and LOC 42.08.410 sidewalks, and adding new LOC 38.18.308 sewer laterals and 38.18.320 sewer line inspection. Item 5.3, Resolution 23-40, a resolution of the City Council authorizing a second lease modification agreement for the police training and evidence storage space. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Move to adopt the consent agenda. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 6-0. Okay, now moving on to council business. We're going to start this evening with Ordinance 2941. This is an ordinance amending LOC Chapter 12.50 and 12.51.
Hold on just a second, Your Honor. There's one other.
One more consent agenda.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I flew right over it, but it's okay. Sorry, Quinn. Okay, we have a councilor-only item on the consent agenda. This is Resolution 23-42. This is approving an appointment to the Parks Board and the 50-plus Advisory Board. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 23-42?
Move to adopt Resolution 23-42.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Okay, now, council business. So we have an ordinance making some updates to our advisory boards, committees, and commissions. And welcome back, Councilor Burdick, just in time. And we welcome Quinn Bruner, a management analyst, to walk us through these changes. Mr. Bruner, good evening.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to present today. My name is Quinn Bruner. I'm an analyst in the city manager's office, and I'm here to share some information on Ordinance 2941, proposed code changes affecting our advisory boards, committees, and commissions. So I prepared a high-level summary of the proposed changes, which I intend to keep to about 10 minutes, and then I will happily answer any of your questions after I go through these few slides. So, as you know, our boards and commissions are a vital part of the city's governance structure. Our members serve as conduits of community needs, as champions of council values and priorities, and as advisors to you all as well as to our departments. To strengthen this structure, staff have been collaborating to align our 10 boards and commissions so they function as one coherent program. This has taken the form of quarterly all-staff coordination meetings, a revamped recruitment and selection process, which you all participated in the spring, code cleanup, which I'll be talking to you about today, and in the coming months, a revamped summit and work planning process, which Ms. Thiesing and I will be talking to you about in the coming months. While we continue to take opportunities to iron out wrinkles in the boards and commissions program, it's my impression that this existing system largely works. For this reason, the scope of the code cleanup was limited, focusing primarily on clarifying ambiguous and contradictory code language, aligning code language with current practice, and in limited cases, which I will highlight today, removing barriers for implementing best practices. So we made no modifications to the functional charge of the boards or to their relationships with council. So there's a little bit of background. I will now dive into the weeds. So we have, in the staff report, we laid out a litany of small changes. I think it took the form of 48 staff comments, but the bulk of these changes fall into these 9 buckets. So I'm going to run through these really quick. If you have, if you'd like me to pause or if you've got questions as we go along, just flag me down and I'm happy to go into some more depth. So we had community members who flagged that the DRC residency requirement was inconsistent with that of other boards and commissions. We applied the standardized language that we use across other boards and commissions, so only residents within the city's urban services boundary are eligible to serve on the DRC. That's this one here. On the Library Advisory Board, we ended up going in the other direction. As you know, about two-thirds of the library's operating budget comes from the Clackamas County Library District. Director Kelly learned that the Library Advisory Board, which doubles as the independent library citizen advisory committee required by the Clackamas County Library District, has been operating out of compliance. To correct this, we changed our eligibility requirements to include the entire library services area, which is essentially the city boundary, the urban services boundary, and a little corner here further southwest. So the code language remains consistent in that a majority of library advisory board members are required to live within the city limits. We just now have the ability to include a member from the unincorporated parts of the library services area. All right. Youth eligibility. Made a tiny change here to clarify that high school seniors who may be 18 at the time of their appointment are eligible to serve in this capacity. That is this change up here. We also removed some redundant language that is consistent with but unnecessary given an earlier section in the code. In terms of youth distribution, we have, this is a part of a broader effort to strengthen the engagement of our youth members. We found that having 2 youth members on each board has made a big difference in their ability to participate and to show up in a meaningful way in these spaces. So we added a second youth member to the Library Advisory Board and the Transportation Advisory Board, where there had previously been 1 member. We also removed the code language that allowed for youth members on the 50+ advisory board and the Historic Resources Advisory Board, where there are currently and have historically been empty seats. So now we have 2 youth members on our 5 advisory boards with youth members. On the attendance front, we made a small change in who is administratively enforcing the attendance policy. At the end of the day, council you all have sole authority to remove members who have been appointed to advisory boards. Under current code language, the chairs of the boards keep attendance records and initiate proceedings to recommend removal of a member who is chronically absent. Instead of putting that responsibility with the chair, we've shifted that to the staff liaison, who has up until this point been monitoring that. Yes, Councilor Afghan.
Is that 6 absence or excused?
Yes.
Or both?
Yes, very good question. And so that is the other thing that we've changed here, is we've eliminated the distinction between excused and unexcused absences. And so that, yes. Did that answer your question? Perfect.
If you're not there, you're not there. Excused or not excused, right?
Exactly.
That's the idea.
And so the rationale too in allowing a few more absences for the Planning Commission and Development Review Commission is that because they meet bi-monthly and have somewhere close to between 20 and 24 meetings a year, those members should have a little bit more latitude. Whereas those boards that are meeting maybe 11 or 12 times a year, missing 4 absences and missing a third of the meetings, which would qualify as non-performance of duty.
So after 6 absences, it's whose decision to
Yes.
relieve them of their services?
Very good question. At the end of the day, it's yours. And there are specific circumstances for the Planning Commission and DRC because they are state-required bodies, which Attorney Boone has walked me through in detail. But for our advisory boards, a staff member would the staff liaison would initiate a vote to remove the member at the advisory board meeting. And if members would like to go forward with that removal, that's a recommendation they would make to council, where you all would have the ability to move that forward. That said, I think a phrase you used during recruitment, Councilor Wendland, is that we are a friendly city, and we want to be cognizant of the needs of our board members. We want to be cognizant of life circumstances, right? And so our boards retain the discretion to keep members on their boards who are active and contributing and maybe going through a moment in their life where they're not able to show up in the way that they need to. This is simply code guidance to provide a standard set of expectations, but we will continue to operate as humans and to use discretion so that we are keeping the best people on these boards in opportunities in spaces where they can contribute and add value.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I think that's what we had on the attendance front, excuse me. In terms of schedule alignment, this is one small change where currently officers are appointed at the beginning of the fiscal year in July, and instead they will now be appointed at the beginning of the calendar year in January. This aligns our board cycle with the council cycle. When you all are appointed council liaisons to the boards, it also alleviates a couple pinches that we were running into where newly appointed board members in July were in their first meeting voting for officers despite not really knowing what they were doing or who their peers were. It also created some weird situations where people were serving as chairs and would be in line to be on the search committee for their own reappointment. And so we had to sometimes go to the vice chair or just to general members to serve on that search committee. This prevents that search situation from arising. It's a small realignment in terms of when chairs are elected to the boards. It also fits really well with some broader work that we're doing in synchronizing the council's annual schedule with the boards and commissions' annual schedule. As you can see here, how this will kind of flow together.
So what happens if the chair is elected and they're in January and their term is up in June?
Yes, so they would be ineligible to serve as the chair for that year.
Okay.
And so they're currently eligible to serve as a chair for 2 consecutive years. And the additional requirement we added here is that if they are going to be up for reappointment to the board, they are not eligible to serve as the chair in that cycle.
Okay.
Perfect. There are a handful of small changes that we made having to do with the scope of advisory boards. This is language I shared at the beginning that I just want to emphasize. Our 7 advisory boards, excluding Budget Committee, DRC, and Planning Commission, all really serve these 3 primary functions: as advisors, as champions, and as conduits. Right? And so as we went through the work of our advisory boards, we changed some language. Sometimes when there's words like recommend or will decide, right, or things along those lines, we softened that to advise to make it more consistent, especially around budget processes where consultation and recommendations by the advisory boards are not a formal part of the city's budgeting process. We clarified that in code so that there's not a contradiction between how we go through the budget process and what the charge of the advisory boards are supposed to be. So there's a number of small changes that fall under this catch-all. This was an animated slide, but it is in PDF here. But you probably saw a lot of red ink on the Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources Advisory Board. Essentially, that code language came together in 2016 when the Parks and Rec Advisory Board merged with the Natural Resources Advisory Board. We took that code language, we smashed it all together into one Frankenstein chapter of code, and it was it was very thorough, but also hard to read. And so Attorney Boone, Director Anderholm, and I sat down. We did not change the intent of the chapter. We simply clarified some of the language in areas where they went into intense detail. We removed that intense detail in favor of broad categories so that as new facilities come online or program offerings change, we do not have to update code to reflect that. Instead, it is captured under broad statements, right? So we made those changes to the code, to the PNAB duties section, but there is, yes, I'm happy to answer more specific questions too, because I recognize that area is just covered in ink. Finally, we are formally dissolving the Tourism Advisory Committee. The last meeting of this group was November 6, 2019. There are currently no active members. This resolution this ordinance would formally dissolve this non-active group. We also included some language in an earlier section of the code, which clearly lays out the existing dissolution process. Council has the authority to dissolve a body that it creates, but just for the sake of clarity, we added a section to the code clearly laying out this authority. So these are the proposed changes that we have before you. I'm happy to answer any specific questions on items that I covered in these buckets or on anything else that you saw in the staff report that you'd like more information on. Thank you.
Mr. Bruner, thank you very much for the thorough report and for all of your work working with the staff, with boards and commissions in putting this together. Not only is the content really good and important, but the way you presented it, I have to say, we should take the pictures I like. It's good, just everyone. It was a great PowerPoint or whatever it is. Thank you, and I appreciate your outreach to the community as well as a part of this process. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all the members of the community who serve on our board and commissions. Of course, these are great cleanup changes that have nothing to do, of course, with the members of the boards and commissions themselves, who do a wonderful job serving the community and the youth members. And we really appreciate all the time they spend. I know that the DRC was here till like past 11 o'clock last night alone. So the amount of work that our community members put into volunteering is really impressive. So thank you for doing this good work that helps them better serve the city. We appreciate it. Does anyone have any other questions for Mr. Bruner? Councilor Wunda.
So one of the strategies that we have for our boards and commission is to hear the council goals and then have them work on it, which is a shift from what we've done before. That's not necessarily incorporated in code. Is that more just practice? Is that what we're going with?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And you'll be hearing more from Ms. Thiesing and I on this in the coming weeks, months. We've put a lot of thought we've been working with the other staff liaisons of the boards to kind of line up an ideal rhythm of how we will make sure that you all hear lots of input from our boards and commissions members before you engage in goal setting, while also allowing space for you to set clear direction for the city that then our advisory board members are able to draw from when setting their goals for the year. And so we've laid out a rhythm that we think will achieve that outcome, but that is something that does not need to be set in code, as it can be dynamic and can change depending on the needs of our boards and the needs of our council.
Okay. Good question, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to enact Ordinance 2941. Go ahead, Trudy. Anyone?
2940.
Okay, move to enact Ordinance 2941.
Second.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes 7-0. Mr. Bruner, thank you very much. Appreciate your work on this.
Well done.
Yes.
Okay. Next on council business, item 8.2, we have Ordinance 2942. It's an ordinance pertaining to stormwater management. And pleased to welcome Sonia Johnson and Director Rooney. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Councilors. Yes, I'm Erica Rooney, Public Works Director and City Engineer. With me this afternoon is Sonia Johnson, our Stormwater Quality Coordinator, who works on a myriad of our stormwater permits and requirements that are given to us from the state and from the EPA. And what we're going to talk to you about this evening is a brief overview of some housekeeping, basically, that we needed to do in our stormwater code to make sure that we're in compliance with those permits that we are required to adhere to with the state. So with that, and there's an ordinance attached to these changes, just like any other code change that you would have before you. Sonia's going to give a presentation, an overview of what was in this document and maybe some pictures that will help explain exactly what we're looking at. So with that, Sonia, go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Councilors. I'm here to talk to you today about the Commercial Industrial Inspection Program. It's something that has been required in some way, shape, or form since the late 90s when we got our first stormwater permit from the state. And we've never had it's never been in a written form. And with the newest permit that was sent out in October 2021, we were required to write these things down. So that's what this is. We did a lot of outreach for this, so it would not be a surprise to anyone. We sent out 1,300 letters, to all properties and business owners of properties that were zoned as commercial, industrial, and mixed use. We caught some people, like townhome owners, which they called me, and I said, no, you're not subject to this program. So there was a lot of actual positive feedback that we got. We got maybe a dozen comments through the 30-day comment period that we had. And as I said, they were all pretty positive about the program. We reached out to the Chamber of Commerce several times to try to get a meeting on the books, was not able to do that. We put in newsletter articles in the Hello LO and the Yellow Down. It was on the social media platforms. It was on the main page of the city website all month in October, and it was also on the bulletin board on second floor all month in October. As you can see on the screen there are very few actual property owners that'll be affected by this program. The only properties that are zoned as industrial and commercial are the ones that are, or that could be mixed use, are the ones that are in pink and in dark brown. There are 4 parts to the program. We screen, we notify of inspections, we go out and we do the inspection, and then we send out a report. There's a couple of hierarchies that we're going to be looking at. The highest priority for this program is a business subject to the DEQ's industrial stormwater program. They have a whole permit that they do, and they require us through our stormwater permit, to let them know if somebody is coming into town that needs their permit. The second tier, the second priority, is going to be the regulated community. They're already going to know who they are. They're the people who handle toxic or hazardous materials or create toxic or hazardous waste. And then there's the final tier, which is the non-regulated community. In our permit, DEQ says that they want us to look at businesses that could have an impact on our stormwater permit. In other words, are they going to release something that could exceed water quality standards, in which we would be in violation of our stormwater permit, or are they going to release something that could have us exceed our allocations for our TMDLs? TMDLs are things that make a waterway impacted, water quality limited, they call it. Those are things like bacterias, nutrients, sediment and soil movement. So if somebody lets loose a bunch of dirt for whatever reason, concrete, algae, anyone who has a lot of acids and bases. So those are the things that would fall under that non-regulated tier. If a business is subject to the state's industrial stormwater program, we're going to require the business to contact DEQ, work it out with them. We step back. We want to know from that business whether they got a permit from DEQ or whether they got a no exposure waiver. No exposure waiver, again, that's DEQ's decision. If they do get one, it's good for 5 years. we'll know that it's good for 5 years, and 4 years, 4.9 years later, we'll send a notice to the business and say, hey, you're up for renewal of your waiver, let us know when that gets done. If a business is going to be inspected, we're going to give them a 60-day notice of that inspection, so they have plenty of time. We are going to require that they send us a site plan, as you can see on the screen. It's basically an as-built. Every business gets them when their property is developed. And then we'll require that 30 days before the inspection so that we are ready to go on the inspection and minimize the time that we're on the property and in the business owner's way. Our focus is going to be outside of the buildings for the most part on this program. We're going to be looking at how are you storing your materials, how are you storing your wastes, how are you transferring those materials, how are you transferring those wastes. We'll be looking at loading docks. We'll be looking at stormwater facilities, are they being maintained? And then finally, are there spill kits available if there is an accident? And do your people know are they trained in knowing how to use them and where they're at? So they can get to them quickly, stop anything from getting into our system and then causing us to violate our permit. After the inspection, we'll send out a report within 30 days. There should be no surprises because we'll walk through with the business owner and property owner, discuss things as we see them, if there's anything to discuss, answer any questions that they have. We're looking at this as mostly an educational program, kind of a hand-in-hand kind of a thing. But if, when we write the report, if there's no changes, we're done. They won't see us again probably for another 4 years. If there are changes, we provide 30 days for a follow-up inspection, and in that 30 days, they can either make changes that, that we've discussed and need to have done, or they can give us a schedule for making those changes. So sometimes if it's a structural issue or they have to hire experts or whatever, then they would let us know what their schedule is for doing that. And then we'll follow that schedule. We'll just, keep everything going forward. That's our main purpose in that. And then, of course, we keep doing these follow-up inspections until everything got done. And then once it's done, then they won't see us again for another couple of years. Frequency, again, is going to depend on what the site looks like when we first come on. Sites that are in great condition aren't going to have really no capability of getting to our system, our stormwater system. They're going to see us once a year, once every 4 years, I mean. Sites that are pretty messy and are kind of like my son's bedroom. But we're going to go see them more often, once a year, once every 2 years, something like that. Timeline of this program for rolling it out on the written procedural things is we're going to do some screening this spring, and then we'll start some inspections this summer. Are there any questions?
That's a great picture.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the report. Okay, Councilor Winland.
I have actually a few questions. So can you tell me what an example of the business that you're going to be talking to that is under these classifications? That bottom, I mean, is it like every other business? I mean, or is it businesses that have trash cans? I mean, who's included in, I mean, do you have a hard example of who would be included? Who would we be visiting?
We'll be looking at, so our TMDLs are for mercury, phosphorus, dissolved oxygen, so anything that handles nitrates, anything that handles phosphorus. So if somebody's going to have a lot of open bags that aren't contained, things like that, those are the kinds of businesses we'd be interested in for that non-regulated tier. I can't tell you specific names of businesses or even kinds because we haven't done a lot of screening on that level.
Okay, I mean, it's just hard to approve an ordinance when I don't know who it's going to affect, I guess is my point. If this is maybe 1 or 2% of our businesses that we're going to be looking at, I totally understand that there's specific businesses that are unique to these conditions that DEQ has. What I don't know is what, the third tier is kind of like, is that an encompassing, I can understand maybe a dry cleaner that dumps, things out. I can understand that. I can understand maybe a paint store, that type of thing. Where are they getting? But are we talking about June's Clothing that just, has cardboard and recyclable materials that they have to put outside in their trash can? Are they going to be affected by this?
I think that you need to look at, we are interested in anything that's going to violate a water quality standard or that will cause us to exceed our, what they call them allocations, but they're like standards of the TMDLs. So again, anyone who works a lot with soil, anyone that works a lot with nutrients, anyone who works a lot with concrete or acids and bases. So
Okay.
solvents would be covered under the regulated community. Joe's Clothing is not going to, they have clothing.
Right.
So
So
I would say that it's going to affect, I don't want to say very few, but it's going to be a small percentage
that
of the
many.
businesses here.
okay. And then will this have any fiscal impact on our city budget? Or do we just cover this now with new regulations from DEQ that we just have to kind of spread our staff thinner?
This has been on the books on the permit in one way, shape, or form since the late 90s.
I understand that, but now you're going to actually be going out and doing inspections and all that kind of stuff. So that's, to me, that's people power. And so we're allocating resources now to a new task, which I'm fine. I mean, you know what? If you like the task, great. If you don't like the task, whatever. But we're going to have to allocate time. So will this have any fiscal budget impacts on our budget?
I'm going to defer to.
So not directly in the sense that we just keep piling things on Sonia.
Right, I know, poor Sonia, I mean, she
yeah,
has other
and
things to do.
Unfortunately, regulations don't seem to go away. They just seem to increase. And so over time, for us to be able to do this inspection program and other inspection programs that we have and requirements, it's growing. And at some point, we may need to reallocate some of our staff to help with that as her load gets more and more. It's just increasing, it's not going away. So, but immediately, the fiscal impact is zero. It doesn't change. We're not adding FTEs for this. Again, a big focus in the beginning is going to be about education as opposed to hardcore enforcement, going to court, any of that stuff. We're not talking about that for only extremely serious violations and egregious activities, and we don't even anticipate that. But right now, we want to get an assessment of how big is this program. As she mentioned, it's probably a small percentage of what we sent out letters to, but we don't really know. We need to get our hands around it. And if it seems like it's going to be too big, I'm not going to say maybe in a year or two we'd be in front of you saying this program is bigger than we thought it was going to be. We need 0.25 FTE. I don't know, but right now we don't anticipate that. We're going to try and absorb it within our current workload and with our staff.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Winland. Councilor Afghan.
Ms. Johnson, thank you for coming here and sharing this with us in support of the program. This program will certainly keep our best interest of our environment. So this is great. I have a question for you. When we go do the inspection, is there a checklist or is there a guidelines or is there a requirement that we inspect against? Or is it, for a lack of a better term, subjective or based on the experience of the inspector?
No, it's not subjective. We do have a form. There, on the website, we have the policies and procedures booklet. It's called a strategy on the website, on the industrial commercial webpage. And within that, there is a form that you can find. But basically, it's outside material storage. Does everything look, is everything tidied up? Are there any spills? Things like that. So I have done industrial, commercial types of inspections before. It was a lot more than just stormwater. So it encompassed Historical Preservation Act. It was everything. So I've done this before. It's kind of a, you kind of know what you're looking at.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you, Councilor Afghan. Councilor Moop?
Yeah. Thank you, Director Rooney and Ms. Johnson. I think, I don't know if it's what I was thinking, like the fog with the grease. One time you show me, is it that kind of inspection?
No, we don't expect to actually go into the buildings. The fog program, you actually go into the buildings and you pull the lid and you look to see if it's been cleaned. We are going to primarily stay outside of the business unless we have some reason to believe that there's a reason for us to go in. I mean, it would have to, as Director Rooney said, it would have to be very egregious for us to get anywhere near going inside the building.
In two different programs, fog is related to the sewers. All of your water and wastewater go down into the sewer system. And this is related to the storm system, which they're supposed to be separated, and they generally are. So this is more about flows on the outside, it rains, the stuff you have in your storage yard or facility is running off. Is that causing that flow to go into our streams and rivers? Fog doesn't go into the streams and rivers, it goes into the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, thank you, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Well, it's a good, well, and this again is off topic because it's not stormwater, but the fog, Thanksgiving time. I thought you all did a great public service announcement of putting the fat in the jar. And because certainly people think you just put it all down the disposal, and that's what it's there for. It's like, no,
Please don't. Please don't.
No, we compost,
Yep.
reuse, whatever. No. Oh, no. No.
It depends if it's your home or not.
Yeah. My question is about, capital improvements. Like, to what threshold does someone have to meet to start making capital improvements as a result of these inspections? Threshold of some, but can help us understand that a little bit.
I'm not expecting anything capital improvement-wise to come out of this program.
Okay.
Oh, you mean like, what would they have to do?
Yeah.
So we have the private stormwater facility inspection program that has been in place for a couple of years now. And we have had a couple of sites where the stormwater facility was basically non-functional. And so in those cases, we said, you need to make it functional, you need to restore it back to where it was supposed to be. And then we worked with them. One company, we worked with them for 3 years to get it back up to being functional. So again, we're not here to, do any, hit a hammer. We're just here to make sure that there's progress going forward. In regard to this, it might be they're storing metals outside. on the pavement, that can result in copper, zinc getting into our stormwater system, and copper has a real hard time. Fish have a real hard time with copper. So that would cause us to exceed our copper requirements of our stormwater permit. In those cases, we'd say you need to put build a cover for that waste storage. And that would be something where you couldn't do it in 30 days. So they would provide us with a schedule of when they can get that done, and then we would just make sure that it got done.
Okay, so if businesses are generally, as you put it, neat and tidy, you're not, there's not some kind of, because some of us know from experience that you can take everything to the furthest degree, you know?
No, we are looking at this as being educational.
Okay,
And if a business is very worried about whether they, would pass an inspection, they can contact the business called EcoBiz, ECO-BIZ. And they are funded by EPA and DEQ. They will come out. It's no cost to the city. I can't tell you whether there is a cost to a business, but they'll come out and walk a business through environmentally correct practices
sure.
before we get out there.
And is there, kind of to Councilor Afghan's question, so does this online manual, someone said, well, I just would like to look at the manual right now and make sure I'm in compliance, does it walk people through in an easy to understand way what they would need to do to comply? Straightforward.
It's a policy procedure. I mean, it's not a step-by-step. It's, the permit says that I have to address, or that we have to address specific aspects of an inspection program. And that document that's online walks the person through those. So in that respect, yes, but to walk them through an actual inspection, no, really. There is a form in the very back that's shows the areas that we're going to be focused on, and then it'll say, does it meet conditions? Yes, no, or improvements required.
Okay. Is, just as an aside, that the as-built, I think most new construction, of course, has as-built, but we have lots of, buildings that have been around for a while. I guarantee you they do not have as-built. So what do we do in those situations?
We don't have the as-built, but most people have building plans. Or even of the older ones. I had somebody contact me during the comment period. That building was built in the 90s, and they had the building plans.
Well, yes, the 90s is not that long ago. I'm talking about the 40s.
In that case, then we would basically be walking on site. It would take longer. We don't expect these inspections to take much longer than an hour or so.
Okay.
But in a case like that, it might take a couple hours as we walk through the entire property and determine where are the catch basins, where are the stormwater facilities, and we also will look through our GIS.
Right.
We'll look through what we have historically, but for the most part, it's a way of reducing our time. If they have them available, then we would like to have them. Otherwise, it adds more work to staff.
Mm-hmm. Of course. But if they don't have them, it's not the end of the world.
Then, and we'll
figure it out.
actually, and we'll have to, it'll be a walk through and it'll take a lot longer.
Right. So you mentioned we've been doing the program for decades, or been required to do, but now we're writing it down and doing some operational changes, right? We haven't actually been conducting these inspections of, right?
It's been
Ad hoc.
correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've
If
had
there's a
starts and
violation.
stops.
Right.
There have been some inspections
Okay.
over the years, but there's never been anything that's coherent.
Right.
And now that's what this is.
I think so is there any, let me just ask this, is there anything that would prevent us from doing, to get at some of Councilor Wendland's questions, like some of the scoping work in advance of the council putting forth? I'm not quite sure anyone really fully, and this is great, this is very helpful and informative today, but for a lot of us, we're just kind of seeing this and understanding it for the first time. Is there a way for us to do some of that scoping so we have a better understanding?
I guess I'm not understanding the question.
Well, it sounds like part of the strategy here is to do some scoping work and understand, like, to get at some of Councilor Wendland's questions.
I think the concern is what businesses are, what kinds of businesses. Like, so I would guess like lawn care businesses, right? Garden stores, those would be places where you could have
Right.
our own maintenance yard.
Exactly.
Right.
So places where you have a high risk of regulated materials ending up in the stream when it rains. So,
Yeah.
so I would guess, for example, restaurants wouldn't be very high.
Correct.
Retail shops, schools, I don't know about schools because some schools store things outside.
Yes.
Right.
And so I would guess many of our parks would be easy targets, right? We store our lawn equipment outside, right? So places where they're working with the stuff that will wash into the storm system when it rains.
Right.
So
It makes good sense. We just, I mean, we get one chance to
I do
enact,
think so.
Unknown.
I mean, I think that what we could do for you is, and maybe I'll ask this question, is this spring, when we identify the list of businesses that are going to get inspected, we can come back to you and say, here's the first list. I hesitate to have you say, let's wait, because the reality is we need this for compliance with our permits. We ask people in our community to comply with regulations, and so therefore we as a government should comply with regulations. But I think we could provide you with a greater degree of comfort about who's most likely to be impacted by showing you who's going to make it through that first screen. Could we do that?
Yeah, we certainly can come back. That first, there was a slide that showed about that the first step would be that we do the screening, and we could get a better sense of, we sent out, what was it, 1,300, let's say, letters, and if 20% of those were condos and townhouses, they're not going to be on the list. So we could get that further, we could dive deeper into that list to see how many it is out of 1,300. It'll be less than 1,300. It really will be.
Well, I'm hoping it may be only like 13. We don't really have a huge industrial base in
Exactly.
Lake Oswego, but I guess my point is if somebody parks their van out in front of their business at night when they go home, I mean, that's
That's not going to be it unless they continually let their oil pan drip like a sieve into the stormwater system right there.
right.
That's called an illicit discharge, correct me if I'm wrong. And if we have a perpetual problem with that van parked there, that could be an issue regardless of this program.
Right.
But it's not going to be small things like that. It's not going to be the mom and pop yarn shop, as we talked about earlier today. It's not going to be the clothing store. It might be a grocery store if they have a lot of stuff outside that they store and they're messy about it.
Right.
But some of them are very clean, and a lot of them are, some of those bigger places already know about these things. I think you mentioned that. There they are, the ones who are regulated that have the toxics and the hazards already know about a lot of these things. They might not be doing the best job with them, but they already know about it. So it won't be a surprise to those.
So I just have two last
Yeah, please,
questions.
yeah.
One would be, are we looking at any metrics that we're going to measure throughout this process? Or is it, I mean, I always look at regulations have to change behavior, and you want the behavior to change because you want life better, right?
So
For
that-
everybody. So what are things that you have in your toolbox that you can say, okay, we're effective or not effective?
With the permit, we've told DEQ that we'll let them know how many businesses we inspected, a summary of that inspection, so very broad scope, no details kinds of a thing. And that's all they want to know. And then how many we referred to them, how many businesses we referred to them. In the beginning, the impetus, I think, for this program, because the 1990s permit talked specifically about industrial facilities. And so I think it had to do with DEQ's industrial stormwater permit. And then it has kind of morphed over the last 30 years into what is now required. As you said, there are very few areas of the city that are going to be affected. There were 1,300 properties that we sent letters out to. And I don't expect even, I mean, I hate to put a number on it.
No, and we don't want you to put a number, but clearly a small amount of those. Because I would venture to say 99% of the people that received the letter said, oh, this is like that glass place down in Portland that was emitting whatever. I don't do that. And that's their right. And that's their thought process. As a business owner, they're not doing anything. And so I have a feeling that few people will be affected. More people maybe than they thought they would be, but I would think that it's probably small numbers.
We actually had several businesses call us and want to, part of the code changes are that businesses, we're asking businesses to let us know who their tenants are. And we actually had several businesses call us. And even though it wouldn't be required until next spring, they were like, no, we want to let you know. Call this person. And so that's what I mean. We've had some very positive feedback about the program.
I guess my last question is, since you're going to have to management, do you feel good about this whole thing? I mean, are you feeling that we're able to implement it, and this is kind of like the right, I know a lot of it's regulatory from the federal and the state government, but do you feel it's manageable and it will be serving our interests in Lake Oswego in the best possible ways?
I do believe it's going to serve the best interests of the city. As Director Rooney said, if you're a business and you accidentally discharge something into our system, it's now an illicit discharge. And it's a fine, it's a violation. It's a confrontational meeting with city staff. With this inspection program, we're going to be educating people. We're going to be walking with them, talking with them. We're going to say, hey, you really need to have that, you need to have a spill kit. It needs to be in a place where people can get to it so that when something does happen, it doesn't get into our system. And in that way, it's more of a proactive approach. It's very cooperative. It's going to be very educational. They can ask us whatever questions they want, and we'll either answer them on the spot or get back to them with an email or something if we need to do any kind of research. So in that respect, I don't see this program as being regulatory per se, because we are going at it in an educational way. And I would rather work with a business before they have an accidental spill.
Right. Yeah. So even if we don't pass this, if they have a major spill or something, we're going to get them anyway.
If you didn't pass this, we would be in violation of our permit, but also we are then into that confrontational meeting anytime something should happen.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilor Humbu.
I want you to come to that, like how far are we to a violation if we don't do this?
We don't want to find out. I
I
wouldn't want to mess with DEQ. If we don't make these changes to the code,
Yeah.
well, we have to do annual reports to DEQ about our programs. If we say we're not making these changes, that's a red flag to them, and I don't want to speculate on what that could mean.
Okay.
I don't know. I think that would be speculating about would they come and then audit us for a bunch of other things that we are or are not doing? I would hate to speculate on that. So these changes, again, are working towards the goal of better stormwater. And it is, again, I think the main focus here is, as Ms. Johnson has mentioned, is really about educating people so that they do the right things so that we can hopefully avoid those illicit discharges. We're not out there to make money. There's no money involved in this unless there's an illicit discharge, which we don't want it to get to that. But we're not taking people to court. We're out there educating. And again, it's not a huge group of properties that we're going to have to work with here. But if we take it in a positive manner, over time, people learn to do better things and take better care of the environment and do their part. Just like you mentioned fog, we're teaching everybody, don't throw your turkey grease down the sink. That takes years. Don't throw your wipes. There's no such thing as a flushable wipe. Got to say it 100 million times, but eventually people will catch on to that.
No, just kidding.
So it's more educative than like
Absolutely.
punitive. That's not
Absolutely. It's not punitive.
That's
This is
not, yeah.
educative.
Yeah, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Afghan. Thank you, Counselor Boone.
I can't emphasize how much I love this program. Now, I put myself on the other side. I receive a notification from you inspecting my property, and I have to take care of some stuff. And I disagree with that. Is there an escalation path that I can express my disagreement, or is that the final answer and you must do this? Saying there is no escalation path, I'm okay with that too, but I want to understand it from the business owners.
I would say, yes, there is an escalation path because DEQ requires it. Basically, it's educational. If you disagree with things that the report says you need to do, we would ask, why do you think that? We could have EcoBiz come on site and see if they agree with us or with you. I haven't really thought about that. Most of the things that I have run into with the private stormwater facility inspections they've not gotten to that point. Usually, the changes are minor enough that it's been, okay, yeah, you're right. We didn't maintain it. You either have a spill kit or you don't. Your waste is either being stored underneath something so it doesn't get into the stormwater system or it's not. There's not a lot of, I don't see a lot of gray areas per se, but businesses may not understand that that it's even a good idea to do that.
So it sounds like there is an escalation path, but it will go through DEQ, okay?
Eventually, we have to report all of this to DEQ, again, in the annual reporting and stuff. So we are stewards of DEQ in this case. We are implementing the rules and regulations for them, and as mentioned in the process earlier, is that they are engaged in this, and some of these properties, a few, will have to go and get their no exposure certifications and things like that. So this is a DEQ program that we are helping to, required to help implement. So ultimately DEQ, which we would certainly hope we wouldn't have to get to that phase.
The intent of my question was, as Mayor Buck was talking about, some of us may not be very organized, but we're in compliance. And I, as a person who may have a business, I wanted to make sure that I'm not being penalized because I'm not organized, as opposed to I should be penalized if I am violating the rules and putting unhealthy things in the ground or the storm.
Messiness is not necessarily a reason
Okay.
for Yeah.
That answered
Okay,
my
I
question.
brought up my son's bedroom, but
You answered my question, thank you.
Thank you. I think you see where we're coming from here, you know, this is an opportunity, anytime that we have interaction with the community residents, business owners, it's an opportunity for us to continue building trust with them. And in the regulatory environment, you know, there's a right way to do that, and then there's a way as well that goes too far that kind of starts to erode trust when people see it kind of crossing over that level of reasonableness and effectiveness. But Councilor Afghan said, I mean, I think but we see the importance of the program, the reason behind it. But it's good for us as members of the council to really understand, you know, the program as well, because we're out there and we can help, you know, I mean, we're in the business, most of us are members of the business community. We can help, you know, spread this word and provide understanding. A certain member who may be related to me, which I will not mention, thought this was just about keeping leaves off the top of the storm drain. So it's like, okay, well, it's a little bit more than that.
If we could get people to
He
do
said he's
that.
going to make sure that he's blowing that storm drain off. And he thinks he's going to pass flying colors. So we just appreciate you. And I think that Ms. Bennett's suggestion to come back and help us understand the scope a bit more in the fall will be helpful, just so we're all, you know, because it is, I think you're hearing that we see it as a important, you know, it weighs with us, you know, any kind of regulation, and we want to make sure we're exercising it, you know, in a responsible and judicious way. We'll entertain a motion to enact Ordinance 2941.
Move to enact Ordinance 2942.
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. Ms. Johnson, Director Rooney, thank you very much. We appreciate you
for
being
your
here today.
time.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.
And good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving on to our council's second favorite topic, public restrooms. We have work order 307.1,
So
the Rassekh Park Public Restroom.
I want to ask,
Expensive restrooms for wonderful parks.
like, cooperative procurement, are they going to
Oh,
explain?
is this what we're gonna do? Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I just,
We have our wonderful, this is the Miss Haggart Show. Okay. Welcome. Glad to have you and Director Anderholm here. We're looking forward to hearing about this next stage of park development at Rassekh.
Thank you. Very excited to be here today talking to you about toilets. Really what we're asking you to do today is approve the contract award to the public restroom company for the purchase of the restroom building at Rassekh Park. And I have up on the screen where that restroom building will be located in the park. This contract includes both the manufacturing of the building, including all of the fixtures and finishings and the toilets and the sinks, and then the delivery and installation of the building on the site. And the combined price of that is $352,552. This is a lot. You've already pointed this out. This is consistent with the price for other park restrooms that we've installed and purchased in the last few years, including other restrooms that were pre-manufactured, as well as ones that we had built on site by the general contractor. On the screen, you can see the floor plan and the exterior. We're going to have concrete masonry unit construction. This will include 4 restrooms, gender-neutral restrooms. Here's a little more zoomed-in version of the floor plan. We've got 2 fully accessible restrooms. All 4 will be gender-neutral, and then a utility chase for maintenance of the structure. It's approximately 26 feet long by 10 feet wide, so it's about 266 square feet. And here's an exterior elevation for you to view. I've also got a couple of photos in here of similar restrooms. These are some sort of real-world examples from other communities. This one, I believe, is from Colorado. We're going to have a sort of similar exterior structure with the concrete masonry unit blocks. We'll have a different color, as you saw in the previous photo. We're going to have a dark gray. All of the exterior finishings were selected to be high quality, resilient to weather, and also resistant to damage and vandalism. And here's another example. One of the reasons that we selected this company in particular is because they offer a single slope roof, which matches the design of our future picnic shelter at the park. I've also would like to provide you with a couple of photos to show the construction progress update at the park since I'm here. This photo was from back in July. You can see that our old pile of dirt is still out here in the middle. In August, they had made a lot of progress on the grading and excavation work, and you can see they're just starting to dig out the skate park area in the bottom left corner. Those of you who attended the groundbreaking probably will recognize this is what it looked like around that time. They had just hydro-seeded the entire park. A lot of the more structured areas are going to be kind of our typical grass seed mix, but the large mound in the center here, I think you can maybe see my mouse, is going to be a native mix that includes both grasses and wildflowers, so it's going to look really beautiful in the spring. And in October, you can really see the skate park starting to take shape, which is really exciting. We've got a crew working out there from California Skate Parks, including a couple of local skate park contractors, and our team from Paul Brothers is also out there. So they're doing a great job of sharing access to our single site. And as you can see, the grass has all sprouted. And this is a great shot from earlier this month. You can see the fall colors. This kind of shows the context of the park. The restroom is going to be located right where my mouse is up here, just west of the skate park. And that concludes my presentation if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Councilor Burdick.
What is the roofing material going to be? Because I know this is a 1-on-12, and considering how much rain we get, I know at least in residential, we avoid that, but I know commercial is a little different, so I just want to make sure that we don't risk having leaks in our restrooms.
Yeah, the roof system is going to be a metal sails vertical seam. So, and I believe it's going to be a black finish with wood on the underside, which is kind of similar to the example photo from this one here. You can't really see the metal top.
Yeah. Okay, great. I just want to make sure that we're, again, don't want to have leaks down the road because of our wonderful rain. So.
Absolutely, yeah. We were really careful to select all of our finishings, knowing that we needed to be resistant to weather and damage, and make sure it's a high-quality product that lasts us a long time.
Thank you. Councilor Raff?
This is going to really make our city manager happy. Wink, wink, not really. I don't mean to bring up art or mural at these tough times, but have we thought about adding some color and pizzazz to the bathroom on walls? Maybe some sports-themed murals or art to make it a little more exciting instead of just like cinder blocks or metal, or
So
do we have any money for that?
It'd be 700,000 then.
Right. Just a
Anything's
thought.
possible.
Not that it has to happen, but I think it'd be, it'd be cool.
Good idea.
So I think since we're purchasing this restroom through a cooperative purchasing agreement, which is like a Sourcewell program, that it's pre-manufactured, delivered as is. We have not yet explored our art installation at Rassekh Park.
And by the way, this doesn't have to happen immediately. It's something you can do at a later point.
I would
but-
say there will be money for art for Rassekh Park, right? So-
Yeah, so let me jump in here. That's why I'm
Water's
jumping.
fine.
Yes, so the 1.5% for art for the receipt program, because of the overall project in the first phase, after you do the deductions for utilities and all that, was fairly insignificant. So we actually combined that with a LORAC project, golf course renovation, and then also the renovation of the clubhouse. So the artwork installations will be installed at the LORAC that would be related to this. You do bring up a good point in that we could potentially look in the future at some sort of artwork on all of our restroom buildings. I will say that the color palette, the material palette on this is consistent with what we have gone to in all of our restrooms. If you've been to George Rogers or East Waluga or Westlake, you will see the same color palette, the same material palette. We do raised seam, black roofs on all of our outdoor structures, as well as kind of the grayish blue with dark accenting. So we could explore that in the future, but it's not included.
And one other thing, as part of the draft master plan, the Arts Commission, or the Arts Council is looking at, that one of the things in it is looking at functional art. So looking at the opportunity for art on things like restroom buildings or trash cans or utility boxes. So we could raise it with them and say, hey, give us an idea of what painting murals on restroom buildings might look like in the future.
it could be
'Cause
cool.
It couldn't be just this one, it could be many others.
Yeah, I mean, it could be cool, I think, with our vision of Rassekh being kind of a next-gen kind of, recreational space, we can do something fun and cool and exciting, or we don't have to, but it doesn't have to be like everything else, and it can be like everything else, just want to raise it up. So, thank you.
Good idea. Thank you, Councilor F. Councilor Afkin. Yes.
Did I hear you correctly that this will be built off-site?
Correct. So this building, we're purchasing it through what's called a cooperative purchase agreement, which is, in this case, Sourcewell. So we actually get a discount on the price of the overall building. The manufacturer went through a solicitation process with Sourcewell, which is an interstate purchasing cooperative. And it will be manufactured by them. All the fixtures and finishings get installed, goes through building inspection, and they essentially deliver it to our site on a giant truck with a big forklift and offload it and hook it up to utilities for us. So it's all pre-installed.
And it will be concrete masonry unit?
Yep, exactly like what you see on the screen
Okay.
here, these concrete
If you need
blocks.
someone to drive the forklift, I'm available.
Got it.
This picture reminds me of Foothills. It looks similar. One of the things I noticed, maybe I missed that, is there a drinking fountain in the one we are getting for this park?
The drinking fountain is going to be separate, but in the same vicinity of the restroom.
Thank you. And the cost that you shared with us, that's just for the building. Is there any additional cost for the underground utility that ties to this, or is that already procured?
There is, because Rassekh was essentially a greenfield site, it didn't have any infrastructure utilities on it at all. There is a cost to actually extend water and sewer to that site. A site that had that already would be a lot lower of a cost, but because Rassekh had nothing on it so far, that's something that the contractor is working on as we speak, is extending sewer to that
So
site.
the underground utility costs will come to us later?
That's included in the contract that you approved
got it.
in June.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilor Wendland.
Just the bathroom thing again, I just have to publicly state that spending $1,356 per square foot for a bathroom that's pre-manufactured, we need a new co-op. I mean, frankly, I don't know. I know that we get a discount, which is laughable. This does not include anything as far as site prep or anything else. That's done by the other contract, right? So this is just pure bathrooms for $52,000 is just outrageous. That's what I'm going to say. And I'm not putting any blame on you guys. I'm just saying this is the government market that they wonder why our projects cost so much and their tax dollars, why we can't complete projects. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I'm just kind of like, don't know what to do about it, but I'm just registering that.
Councilor Wendland, what we need to do about it as a council is stand up to bids and be tough negotiators, as we've talked about before. So, yeah, it's like, it's constant, it's a constant battle.
This is the money that we're getting at a discount because we have pre-negotiated pricing. So anyway, I would have expected a lot lower number, but whatever. I am starting to get brain dead to this matter. So thank you. I can hardly wait to see other projects that go forward with inflation.
Thank you, Councilor
Sorry.
Wendland.
Personally, though, you guys are doing a great job.
Yes.
I think, actually, I was totally surprised at how great the grass and foliage has come in. It almost looks like we haven't done anything to that property again. So that, kudos to you guys. So we love the project. Everything's going well. It's just bathrooms are my thing. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a tough flush. Councilor Brooke.
Very much. I always support parks. They make me play football. I saw in the drawing a nice soccer field, football field there. we're gonna have. But like you, I mean, 352,000, it's almost a house, honestly. I mean, in some part of Oregon. So, no, yeah, I ask because now I am kind of, like my friend Aaron is saying, I'm high tech, I'm like hip. I ask Google, yeah, I talked to my app, my chat GPT, and I asked him how much would cost a 270 even, 270 square foot gender neutral bathroom in Oregon. And it responds that it ranges from 80,000 to 150,000 in Oregon. I mean, and it's chat GPT, it gets things. So that's why I don't know what is this thing. Huh?
4 stalls.
No, yeah, for stalls. I mean, yeah, the stalls, you go to Costco, it costs $300 to get things. Come on, I mean, no, I'm just saying it's too much for me to, and I also want to know what is a cooperative procurement method, because I'm not in, those things. I would like to know what it is.
So an interstate cooperative purchasing agreement is where an agency, in this case, I think Sourcewell is from Montana, they go through a procurement process. So they'll put out a request for proposals. So companies from across the nation can submit proposals to be a supplier of, in this case, restroom and shower facilities. So they submit their proposals saying, I can manufacture these products and I'm willing to give a 6% discount to local government agencies who would like to purchase them through this cooperative purchase agreement.
Oh, that's how. Yeah, because like between you, like if I were building this thing in my house, each one of us, in our house, if you were building this with 4 stalls, none of us would pay $352,000. Now, like, let's face it. And is it because I know that there is government, there's some liability, there's some things? I honestly think that it's too much. This is like my take on this. And it would be hard for me to say, okay, let's do it. Like for a bathroom, like I look at this thing and say, this is 352,000. It's a hard sale for me, like, honestly.
So can I follow up? And so how do they become a part? They just offer the discount? That's how they become a part of the cooperative purchase agreement?
So Sourcewell will advertise for proposals and companies can submit their proposals just like if we had advertised for proposals. But because it's a cooperative purchase agency, they'll offer discounts to local governments who want to purchase from them.
So this also might be a question for Ivan, though. We've bid restrooms the traditional way in the recent past. And unfortunately, I agree with Councilor Wendland. This is the price.
Yes. The most recent one that we had constructed on site was at Iron Mountain Park, and not including all of the stuff going out to the street and that, but for the building and to connect it to the sewer and to the water, to the electricity on the site was approximately $380,000. And that restroom is a 2-room restroom with a slight overhang for bicycle parking. So that was a constructed one. And then you'll also remember that we just recently replaced the lower George Rogers restroom. And also
600.
And
Wasn't that 600?
In East Luga. No, those were, I'm not going to get it exactly, but they were about 340 and 380,000. They were from a different manufacturer. And I will say that, I can't disagree with you, Councilor Wendland, or you, Councilor Mugup. I can say that we have researched, we have looked under all the rocks, we have talked to local contractors about these park restrooms. And unfortunately, there's really no other delivery method that's going to be more financially affordable. And so going to Councilor Raff's thing, I think that there needs to be at some point a major shift. I will point out though too, a little bit about the difference between this or something that you'd build in a home. We're building a building that's in an outdoor environment that gets 100,000 uses a year that we expect to last between 30 and 50 years. And that's based on the previous restrooms that we've replaced in our park system. They do not have, in that time, we don't expect any structural issues. They're made with highly resilient materials. This particular one, when we decided looking at this company, one of the reasons was we were looking with the DRC requirement of the shed roof, the single slant roof. So this was the one company that did it. But then other than that, it's a product that's manufactured in Oregon, in Almsville, Oregon. And it is held to the highest building grade. It is inspected in their facility, fully inspected before it comes. And, you know, I still can't get to $1,300 a square foot. I can't, but I also know that recently we went to the National Recreation Parks Association and talked to all the manufacturers that were represented there. And there is not a discount. We're talking $20,000 difference when you're looking for the same thing.
Oh, I know. It's a cabal that they've put together. I'm not going to say the M word, but it's.
Yeah. And
That's how
I
it
wish I
works.
could sit up here and go, we found the golden ticket. And
right.
you know, we've looked for the golden ticket and we have not been able to find it. And, you know, this has been my experience, not just here in Lake Oswego, but for the last 28 years, is that when you look at these outdoor restrooms that you're expecting to be resilient, that you're going to pay a premium price, much higher than you would expect for any type of residential, or even, in a lot of cases, other commercial, industrial buildings.
Right. No, I get it.
Is the only water fountain at the park attached to this restroom?
It's not attached, but it's nearby.
It's nearby. Is there a dog bowl?
There is a dog
Oh,
bowl.
good. Are we putting cameras on not in the restroom, but on the restroom?
We are anticipating that we will. We've gone to pretty much a standard where we are doing that on the exteriors, primarily because we don't close our parks, nor do we have a way to close our parks at night. And we do have, since COVID, we have seen a significant uptick in people coming and targeting our restroom facilities to do damage to them. So we do have cameras, and we work very closely with our police department.
And hopefully there won't be a TikTok
Good. Yeah,
video talking about destroying public bathrooms.
And the locks, automatic locks.
Yep,
Yes.
these restrooms will have programmable magnetic locks so that they can be locked.
Okay,
Remotely.
very, very good. Yeah, honestly, it wouldn't be a bad idea too, just having cameras around that skate park, just with the kids. You hear some, you know, incidents of, you know, harassment things happening. And yeah.
And see what happened.
Yeah, sorry, it's a good point. And then the 4 stall, I know like Foothills, we have 2 stalls, how, 4 stalls, just given the use, or?
4 stalls was based on the overall use of the park at full build out. At full build out, the athletic field will have 2 youth baseball fields that could be in action at a time, along with the skate park, a large playground area. We anticipate that it'll be highly used. 2 stalls would generally require probably lines. And, you know, when you're serving 4 youth baseball teams and another 4 youth baseball teams waiting to get on the field, we could have accidents if we don't have adequate restrooms. So, and obviously we're not building to a major surge, but this is really the appropriate size. It's very similar to some of our other, East Waluga as an example, where we actually have 4 restrooms, and we have the 2 baseball fields there, the playground and the shelter.
Okay.
That's consistent.
And then the sewer line we're running, this is the one that's coming underneath the Pecan Creek? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And you're doing that, and we're restoring the natural area, and you're able to put in the sewer in the natural area and put it back, even under a creek.
Even under a creek, yes.
Wow, that's great. And yeah, okay. Oh, there's more questions. You guys really have more questions? You really need to ask okay, okay, Counselor Afghan.
Director, you mentioned two recent toilet facilities. Both of those two were traditional way, design, bid, built.
The first one at Iron Mountain was traditional design, bid, build, and then the two restrooms, George Rogers and East Waluga, were actually, we purchased them through procurement, through a cooperative procurement process. It was a different manufacturer here in Oregon.
So the Iron Mountain one
Was a traditional.
and it
Was
how many
380,000 for 2 stalls.
Okay.
Yes.
And this cooperative thing is also goes out to bid with, so it's not like we're single sourcing.
No. So to add on to what Ms. Haggart said about the cooperative process, they don't just say, if you build restrooms, throw us a number, throw us a design. They actually do a design so that it has to meet a standard. And then a lot of the cooperative make sure, because they're multi-state, that it meets the building codes of all those states. So the manufacturer has to assure the cooperative purchasing conglomerate that it's going to meet those standards.
Thank you.
And then they put a number to it. And then usually it is competitive where there's multiple, and they only pick one or two for each category that they
Sounds
represent.
like if we compare this facility to Iron Mountain, we are actually getting a better pricing because we have 4 stalls. And I think we need to recalibrate our thoughts or our opinions on the construction costs. So things have escalated a lot, yet the bidding process that we're doing is keeping the price escalation not much. So thank you, Mr.
I
Mayor.
made the same statement at the Iron Mountain, West Waluga, East Waluga, and any other restroom that we've had built. So I am consistent, but you're
Thank you.
true. You are right.
You really have
No,
to
yeah,
say-
I just wanted to tell Director that I checked again and I saw that in Oregon, it can range from $200,000 to $600,000 to build something like that.
With 4.
With
Well,
4.
they were listening,
Outdoor.
they were listening to this meeting.
No.
Info's been
No,
updated.
because I didn't, you said, when you said outdoor, when you said outdoor, I asked outdoor, it says it's, for one stall can cost $150,000, one unit. So the 4 can vary from 200 to, I mean, it's frustrating when you see that, but this is what it is.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Thank you.
Move to authorize the city manager to sign a cooperative procurement, no
Second,
matter how outrageous it is, contract with the public restroom company.
second it.
All right, any further discussion? Yes, Counselor Raff.
I think we're all aligned on this, but I'm just going to say this just for the record, that, and Counselor Mboop and I are probably the only ones here that have, due to our fandom of football, see a lot of other parks around Oregon on a regular basis. And what I will tell you without any doubt, the other sports and recreation parks and facilities around the state have nothing compared to the facilities that we have in Lake Oswego. Like the bathrooms you see in like Buckman Park are terrible. And so it's what we have in Lake Oswego, what the Parks Department has done with our facilities and our bathrooms. Yes, they're expensive, but it's weird to say, our bathrooms are a statement. But it's true. They're great, and when people come and visit the city, they're getting high quality services, high quality products, high quality amenities. It's all part of the plan. So
McDonald's bathroom.
That's right.
yeah,
That's a good point. Thank you, Counselor Raff. We do have great bathrooms. You do a great job with the bathrooms.
Go team, go. Yes.
I will pass that on.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Thank you both very much. Thank you for the update on the park, too. It
Thank
looks
you.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
looking really
Great
good.
slideshow.
And more football field.
Happy.
Oh, Junior, okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess for the bathroom.
Yeah.
Back in order. Okay, next on the agenda is a study session on our 2024 update to the master fees and charges. Joining us is Finance Director Sean Cross. Director Cross.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I'm Sean Cross, the Finance Director. Here we are again with the annual review of the city's master fees and charges. Basically going to break it into a few sections. The first part, I'll talk about the general indices that we used for the indexing of the different costs for construction versus like planning fees and that kind of stuff. Then I'll focus on utilities. That's like the biggest chunk of what everyone really wants to talk about. I'll show my usual 5-year projections and graphs showing, basically just showing that the rates that we use, we will still have a fund balance at the end and we can still do all the operational stuff and everything that's in the CIP. And then I'll turn it over to our city attorney to talk about the revamping of the e-discovery fees at the end, and then open up for questions. And then we'll be bringing this back for adoption December 5th. So this is really a chance to, we'll talk about everything. If there's any changes you would like to make, I'll make them, and then I'll bring it back on December 5th for adoption. And please do not wait till the end for the questions, even though I have a question slide back there. Just ask them, just fire them off. I have 12 slides, just, through the whole thing. So just ask them as we go. So first one is from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. We are in, for our CPI, the city is at 3.6%. We fall under the Western Regions B and C. Of that, the energy prices in that index was 11.3%. That's primarily based on gasoline. It's not the price of oil, but it's actually the cost of gasoline, of just transporting stuff and everything. And then we used the ENR Construction Cost Index for almost everything for 20 cities, for everything engineering related, except for one. We actually used for one of our zone of benefits. It's for some reason based on the Seattle one. It's like an outlier, so we use that one as well. I just wanted to show the CPI because it was so kind of crazy last year at 8.5%. So what this graph is showing here is, in 2014 it was just under 2%, and then this year it was at 3.6%. You can kind of see the blue line. The red line is the 10-year average. It's right at 3%, kind of what we use for budgeting. We always use 3%, and you can kind of see even when it's really low and really high over a 10-year period, 3% is the number. I want to point out last year we didn't raise our rates by the 8.5%, but rather did another 6% like the year before. So our 10-year average on our rates that we're charging is 2.7%, so just slightly less. So now we're to the utilities. Again, just pointing out that these are going to be 5-year forecasts. Really, the whole point of them really is to highlight that the rates that we're putting in here and the rates that we're pulling from our models and then projecting will allow us to do everything that's in the CIP and the 2-year budget. So I take the biennial budget, I plug it in there, and then I do projections off of that based on 3% or 4%, what we're thinking, and then just make sure that at the end of the 5 years we still have fund balance, in case of an emergency happens or something like that. So like in some of the utilities, we'll try to keep it roughly at about 3% of our fixed asset number is what we want to keep in there for like a capital reserve, which would roughly be $3 to $4 million for like in water and sewer, just in case something happens, like something like in the storm, like with the ACC when they had the slide, and this is 10 years ago before the price inflation and stuff. That was like $500,000-$600,000 fix. So we have to have some in there on top of just an operating reserve in there. So this, again, these graphs will show that these rates are doing that. So basically, it's showing 3 different things. It's in the net operations, that's going to be our current revenues that we're charging annually, and then we're going to take away all of our operating expenditures, and we even throw in there. Just for this, we'll throw in there our capital, and we throw not capital. We throw in there the debt service payments. We do that because it's like 25 years. It's pretty level. And for us, it's almost an operating cost to do the capital. We have to have the debt service. So usually in formal accounting, that wouldn't be a part of that. But for this, we do that. So what you're trying to see. So the blue line will show that is what basically our net income for the year for the thing is. And then and that doesn't include capital. And the green line will show that's how much capital we're doing this year or projecting to do. And then the red line is showing our ending fund balance at the end of it. So what you're seeing here in stormwater, we're at $5 million, and then it kind of comes down as we do a big year of capital, and then as the capital goes down, our fund balance goes up to $8 million. What happens with stormwater, unlike the other ones, is there's usually like a street project that comes in. I don't know, something like Wembley shows up, and then all of a sudden you have the street project that's a couple $1 million, and then it's in the dig once, and it's really more of a stormwater project that's $3 or $4 million, and so that fund balance will actually go down when some of the street projects are more clearly defined in the year that they're going to happen.
This is based on the current CIP.
Yes, this is based on the one that was just approved with the budget. So
Okay.
23, 24, 24, 25 is the annual budget in there. And then all the capital is everything that was approved in the CIP.
Okay, thank you.
In the street fund, you can kind of, this one, it has our most funding sources of everything out of any of the things. Not the most money, the most different funding sources. It has, we get the gas taxes from the state, we get the vehicle registration fees from the county, we have our street maintenance fees that we charge our residents, and then the general fund most of the time is giving $3 million, but in the last couple of years for to make this biennium work, it was $2 million per year. So those are kind of, multiple different funding sources. And it did get a huge increase in the street maintenance fees from last year that were approved to do pathways. And, in this big year right here, it's over $10 million. One of these projects is Lakeview Boulevard at $5.5 million. And then there's a pathway project for $1.7 million. So, my point was we are spending the pathway money, so thank you. That project that was approved last year. But you can kind of see we're trying to keep, right here. It's not getting too big, but. Next is the sewer fund. This is probably, you're seeing this huge spike in the capital, and that's really just the initial parts of the wastewater plant project. So it's really the land acquisitions and stuff right now. So even if we don't do the project, because it still has to be approved, Portland will need that land to do their portion of it and that kind of stuff. So, but you can kind of see this one sitting down here, and this is primarily because of all the capital that's going into the wastewater project right now. What this doesn't have in it, though, is it doesn't, because the project wasn't approved when the budget was in there. We'll have to come back for a budget supplement later. I mean, just a note here on this graph is because, you see $25 million in capital here, but you don't see any capital out here. So we'll have to increase the budget for, funding, but also for the expenditures for the CIP of the plant. So, but as you can kind of see right now, we're still sitting good at a pretty decent capital reserve of, $3-4 million and an annual operating reserve of $1 million. So it's not too bad.
Does that covers not just the operating plant, but anything else related to sewer? Is that correct? I mean,
yeah, it's basically it's contingency. So
right, but I mean, if we have a sewer line or something that goes out in the city, that's what that is used for as well.
Yeah, that's why I say you want a capital reserve, right, not just an operating reserve. Yeah.
Right.
And then with the water one, you can kind of see this huge spike in fund balance here. So all the stuff that was approved in the master plan and is in the CIP, there's also like a $19 million bond issue that's going to be coming up in the next few years to actually get those projects done. Those are all figured in with the actual 2% rate increases that we have scheduled right now. So that was already put in. So we're still doing well. We're not going to have to increase the rates currently. I mean, what we know right now, more than 2% over the future. And we will still be able to do another $19 million bond issue. But again, sitting down here at, $4 or $5 million, you have that, both reserves covered. I always like to throw in the annual billed water consumption only because I started the city right about here, and it was right when the tier rates came in for water conservation. You can even see with all the dry years, the water conservation part that's built into our rates is working because we're well over 1.4 million units of water in the single family dwellings. The rest of them don't have it, and you can kind of see they're kind of flat line. They're pretty straight. There's no conservation where you can kind of see it here in between the different years.
Is that total? Per capita.
This is annual, so this is in thousands of units, so that's 1.4.
So even with more
million
dwelling
units.
units, we're using less water.
Yes,
Oh,
that's what I want to show. And even with, I mean, it spiked up here a little bit, but it's still much lower than there. And that was even when people were turning on their sprinklers this last year because it was so dry in May.
wow, that's
So,
great.
yeah. So here we're showing that it's this is for single-family dwelling. It's based on an annual or a monthly consumption, roughly of 10 units of water and 8 units of in sewer. So basically, there's a couple of units for watering your lawn. So otherwise, everything that goes in's got to come out. So anyways, it's about at 3.5%, which isn't too bad considering how much CPI has been all over the place. We're still, like I said, water at 2%. We were able to refinance the debt and save $600,000 a year in payments, that kind of stuff. So everything we're doing is keeping these rates pretty low. But it is about a $6.50 increase to the annual or to the monthly utility bill, like I said, based on it for a single family dwelling that has 10 units of water monthly. But when you calculate, it's about 7 units, I think, is what the average household uses. This one, again, shows you what we're projecting here. Again, but then this is what we're projecting out one more year. Again, water, 2%, then we need that. 3.9, we need that to, to do the wastewater project. 7% with stormwater, which doesn't, as you can kind of see here, 7% in stormwater is just about the same as 2% in the water fund. So it's a smaller number, but that allows us to do a lot of the stormwater. It's the fund that has the least amount of money and needs to grow the most to do the capital. And then we don't know what street's going to be, so we just, we estimate 3% because that just seems to be the average over the last 10 years. And now I'd like to turn it over to our city attorney to discuss discovery fees, because this was the biggest change in the master fees and charges this year.
That's interesting to hear. Thank you, Director Cross and members of the council. Just briefly, the city attorney's office, when I was hired, you all made clear to me as a council that customer service was a high value for this city. And one of the early priorities that emerged just within the first month that I was hired from both the municipal court and our retained defense counsel, they asked me to look at the city attorney's discovery practices. And just for you and members of the public, discovery refers to the information that the prosecution collects during its investigation. And a prosecutor's office is required to turn over that information to defendants. But often that material can have information such as witnesses' addresses or victims' addresses that a defense attorney is not permitted to share with their client. And so the city attorney's office had a practice of redacting from body-worn camera and other city-created videos material that the law prohibits defense attorneys from transferring to their clients. And defense attorneys objected to that practice and instead asked that we provide them with unredacted videos and allow, if they needed our services to redact that information, to simply request that we do that. So you'll see in the master fees and charges, we charge $50 an hour to do that redaction services for defense attorneys. And then the other major change is that since the advent of body cameras, you might imagine we have an enormous amount of digital materials that we want to be able to transfer to defense attorneys. And over the course of the last several years, when those digital materials were developed, the process by which we can transfer those materials has been somewhat limited. And so part of the other thing that I did in conjunction with the IT department and the police department was to try to identify some internal efficiencies in the way that we transferred those materials. And I'd like to really give compliments to Sheila Montag in my office, who deals with these materials, and she had suggested a number of these changes herself, and the biggest one is that we will now be providing all of our digital materials to defense attorneys at the time we issue those cases, and that change has been well received by both the municipal court and the defense attorneys. So if I'm happy to answer any questions.
The one reduction in the book, it's great. We don't just increase. Councilor Verdict.
So does this put us kind of in line with what other cities are charging, or how they're doing their fees?
Yes, thank you, Councilor Burdick. It does both the practice as well as the fees. We are quite consistent with other municipal courts now and consistent with Clackamas Circuit Court.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on fees, charges? In general, right? Yes, Councilor Morgan.
So the thing that I wanted to bring everybody's attention to is it's a fine, but they call it a tree enforcement fee. And it has to do with the amount that's levied upon someone who carelessly kills a tree. And the reason this is important to me is I live next door to a property that was redeveloped. It was an old house. It was not inappropriate, but a large number of trees were taken out. And unfortunately, after the house was finished, it was very high dollar billed. And there were some trees, large Doug firs, that died just because of carelessness. The builder had a lot to do. He was on his way down the road. And looking at this now, I think that these fees were insignificant. They were simply a rounding error to the size of the project. And I'd like you all to consider perhaps increasing those fines for trees that have already been permitted and decided on with the city for a project, and then no one cares and they don't take care of them. Sometimes they don't observe tree protection. I think when we finally can agree on something, we really ought to enforce it. The rules are the rules. We ought to do that. So that's what I would ask you guys to consider, perhaps increasing the enforcement fees for trees.
I agree, Councilor Corrigan. I wonder if this is something that may be good for us to look at as part of the urban and community forest update.
Yeah, I think at this point, any amount we would pick would be arbitrary. And I do think that you, after you finish the current urban community forestry plan, the next thing you'll be taking up is revisions that are necessary to the tree code and other tree-related processes. And that would probably be important to consider in the context of your overall tree regulation. So if it's all right with you, I'll just sort of make a note of it. Jessica's here, and we will make sure that that's a policy topic that you guys get back when you get to that step. Is that okay? I hear what you're saying, that the fee may be too low to really create an incentive for people to actually take care of the trees. And at the same time, as I say, if we were to change it now, I feel like we'd probably be pulling a number out of the air, and it probably ought to be in the context of your overall policy and approach. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Corrigan. One of the miscellaneous fees we have at the city is a $1 parking stall fee. What's the $1 parking stall fee?
You know what page that was on?
$1 parking stall?
On it's on page 20 of the, page 20. This is under miscellaneous fees, parking stall fee, $1 per hour per stall.
That's only at Kubanks.
Included
The city doesn't collect
in the
that.
price of your meal.
I believe the mayor's only purpose here is to prove that he did his homework.
True.
So, good on you, Mayor.
Just know we don't really charge for parking anywhere, so. Well, yeah, page 20, section 1, and the section 1 general.
Oh,
Right off the top of my head, no.
page 20 of,
Well, it's page 20 of the red line and page 19 of the
Yeah,
underlined.
page 20 of the red line. Sorry.
No, but I can look into it.
Well, I mean, we don't charge for parking, so.
No, I think it has to do with someone taking over the parking spots, but I can look into it, get back to everybody.
It could be, there are times, especially when we have filming in town, that someone wants to reserve a parking spot for a period of time. So it could be, and as I say, this is one of those things that I'm sure we created because of a very specific fact situation that presented at some point in the past, and no one remembers what that fact situation was. And so, but I'm guessing that was the idea, is that if for some reason you're going to make exclusive use of a parking stall for some private commercial purpose, we would charge you for your essentially rent for that. But I don't know, and we'll do what we can to find out why we charge that.
Yeah.
We'll find someone who remembers what happened.
Things in there. If each year we ask about one random fee,
Yeah.
and we'll clean them up, yes.
have we had any feedback from citizens or businesses or anyone else about, in general, about fees that they feel are out of line?
Not generally. There's always the few that will
An
that
occasional thing,
call,
but there,
yeah.
you haven't seen
This
any
isn't like when we're-
trends?
No, this
or-
isn't like when we were doing Lois and the water plant at the same time when, we have 1,200 accounts and we had 1,000 calls a month. It's not like that at all anymore.
Right.
It's been a long time. It's, a handful of calls a day, so.
Less so about the utilities, more about the other fees, I guess. I mean, the general fees
I
and
would say
things that we.
I'm probably, if I get a complaint about fees, it's actually most frequently about the base charges for our utilities, that our base charges are relatively high versus our consumption charges. But I agree with Director Cross that we don't get very many complaints. And I think that's because you index them to commonly, and you plan ahead, right? So we know now that next year's sewer will likely be 3.9%, right? So you plan ahead.
Sorry, can I, one more thing. Again, in the red line version again, just page 18, the franchise fees, I just note that the ordinance has expired for both the PGE and the Republic Services and the Ziply Fiber.
We're currently working with PGE.
Okay. And we've updated Republic. Maybe we just need to update the,
Yeah, my guess is this draft came out before.
okay, anyway, just a note. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Director Cross, thank you very much for this very thorough and informative update.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I did have one question on the comparative between the cities, which was on page 6.
Yeah.
So the stormwater went up considerably, is that, or the sewer went up? Did one of our, no, let me
Let's
go
see, for
back.
us, the street fee is the one that went up the most last
Okay.
time. And some cities don't even have it.
And didn't we used to be kind of towards in the middle? Or have we always been, I always remembered us as being,
No, we've always been toward the right.
we have.
I mean, in the last 14 years, but after Lois, that kind of jumped up.
That just,
That
okay.
jumped up the sewer fee, it doubled, and then Hello Tiger kind of doubled the water fee, so.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Wilman. Okay. Thank you, Director Cross. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for this report. Next on the agenda, item 10.1, we are going to conduct a public hearing on Resolution 23-41. It's a resolution amending the Lake Oswego Public Contract Rule 46-109 definitions. It's regarding And Rule 46-0125, Public Contracting Officers Policy and Guidelines. We will start now with a review of the hearing procedure by Ms. Osnack.
Thank you, Mayor Buck. Members of the council, now is the time set for the public hearing on Resolution 23-41. This resolution would amend definitions in the Lake Oswego Public Contract Rules. This is a legislative decision, which is generally a policy decision within the discretion of City Council. And although this legislative decision is discretionary, it must also comply with applicable state contracting laws and administrative rules, which Mr. Boone will highlight for you. The public hearing process will begin with a presentation by staff. Testimony will then be received from the public. Individuals will be allowed up to 5 minutes. Recognized neighborhood associations, homeowner associations, government agencies, or their incorporated public interest organizations will be allowed up to 10 minutes. The time limit shall not include time taken up by questions from council or responses to such questions. Any person in attendance may cede his or her time for testimony to another person, but in no case shall any person's testimony be increased to greater than 10 minutes. Are there any conflicts of interest? Remembering that ex parte or site visits are not included in that for legislative decision. Seeing no conflicts of interest, we're ready for the staff report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Evan Boone, Deputy City Attorney. I'm going to try to be a little shorter than Director Cross. In August of 2021, we embarked on our equity and contracting program, in which we require solicitations to consider COBID, Certified Office of Business Inclusion and Diversity, through the state program. At that time, their sweep of categories include veteran disabled programs. As of this legislative session, effective January 1, 2024, they've changed that to just all veteran programs. All veteran-owned businesses would be included within the COBID. We made one reference to the disability on the veterans in our solicitation process, so we're going to just take out the disability side, and then we'd be matching with the COBID. And then secondly, we also aligned a couple of word changes to align better with LORA and the city, so it's just more generic. Contracting officer and the city manager means both executive director and that sort of thing. So.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Boone. Any questions for Mr. Boone? All right, we'll go ahead and open this public hearing. We'll ask if there's anyone here to testify. Anyone? Okay, we will go ahead and close the public hearing and entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2341.
Move to adopt Resolution 23.41.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Councilor Winland. Any discussion? Okay, see none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. We'll see you in just a little bit. Okay. Information from council. Anyone have any information they would like to share? Councilor Corrigan? Councilor Winland? No? No one? No? Okay, well, I have a couple things. Last night, I just want to give thanks to the school board. They're affirming their participation in our vertical housing development zone at their meeting last night, which is greatly appreciated. Good community partners as we look to get that project off the ground, and those 10 kids that they say will live in that building based on statistical modeling into the schools. Won't that be great? I want to also give thanks to the second graders at Palisades and the first graders at Hallinan, both paid visits to the City Hall and police, fire, library over the past couple days, and the staff, especially to Kim for putting those tours together and the others who led them. It's been great having lots of the young school kids come through the building and ask lots of tough questions. Remind everyone that we have of course, the holiday tree. Oh, that's not the holiday tree, but the holiday tree lighting down at Millennium Park on Friday.
Friday.
On Friday night,
Friday,
big lighting. It will be great. Yes, that's what I had for updates. Oh, you do, yes.
This is more for city manager because most of your staff has left. Yeah. I was stopped. I usually rarely get stopped by anybody in the public, which I think is weird because Martha said when we got elected that we get stopped all the time. I never get stopped. Maybe it's the way I look. I don't know. So I did get stopped by a community member at the Starbucks down on A Street yesterday. And all they wanted to stop me for was to tell me how amazing our city staff is, how helpful they are, and just, hey, Councilor Rapp, you have an amazing staff at City Hall. Just thank you. And it's not just stuff that I've been working on recently, but over the years I've been here, they've been amazing. So
Was it my mom?
No.
Thank
So
you.
anyway,
Thank you for the
in fact, I'll
compliment.
tell you who it was after the meeting. We all know this person, and it was very nice. So good job.
Very good. Ms. Bennett?
Just a couple things. First, a reminder, city offices are closed on Thursday and Friday, although parks staff will obviously, and public works staff, and law enforcement staff, and fire staff will obviously working really hard on Friday. Tree lighting goes from 3 in the afternoon to 7 at night. It's an amazing extravaganza, and we really appreciate our partnership with the chamber. Because over just my time here, that event's got bigger and bigger and bigger, and if the weather's at all good, there'll be lots and lots of folks there. Just 2 things I sent out to you yesterday. I want to just get your head nods on. The first is comments to Metro on the regional solid waste system plan. And just as a reminder, the things we're going to be telling them is, first, we care about access to services for our residents, specifically self-haul and household hazardous waste collection. Second, we care about rate transparency, because sometimes it's hard to figure out how the rate system comes together. And then last, we care about rate affordability and rate management. The last couple of years, solid waste tip fees, solid waste excise tax have increased substantially. Is that all right, those comments? Okay. Second is I want to make sure, go ahead.
On your point of bringing better access to local, that 20-mile distance
Yeah,
that you
access.
mentioned, I think that needs to be emphasized as well, that they need more substations. Otherwise, you're not going to get people they're just going to throw stuff in the trash instead of be environmentally sensitive to getting rid of things.
No, I think that's a good point, especially as we have the Recycling Modernization Act, and so the number of things that we're going to be encouraged to recycle is going to grow as opposed to shrink. So yes, I definitely think it's both our self-haul customers, but also our household hazardous waste customers. We want folks to dispose of things properly. So yeah, okay, that's great. I will make sure we talk about that 20-mile because I think that's right. Second thing is we're going to actually going to ask the mayor to sign a letter to the county board asking for them to right-size the library district advisory committee. Hopefully you all saw essentially asking them to stay inside the scope of the things they're supposed to manage, but also to reduce the amount of time they spend using a lot of resources for meetings. Is that all peachy? Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Are there going to be reindeers?
Are there going to be reindeer? Yes, there will be. I don't know if they're reindeer or caribou. I don't remember. But yes, there will be on Friday at the tree lighting. There will be
Large animals dressed like
4-legged animals in addition to all of us.
So you have to be there.
Yeah, and I want to also say, last but not least, it's a great meeting when we talk about we have potty talk and trash talk in the same meeting. So thank you all.
I mean, we did talk, talking about rates and fees, and we're very sensitive to, what our residents, ratepayers are paying for services. One thing kind of outside of our control, but we should pay attention to is the PG's announcement of 17% rate.
Yes.
increase, which just seems
That is going to be
astronomical.
horrific.
Now, I don't know if there's anything we do about it, but I mean, it was shocking. Shocking.
No, yeah, I for me, no, like we have, no, we tell them that we are asking for another electric company in Lake Oswego. We just tell them that we are out.
I don't know if it's a letter that we send or what.
17% is not, if it was like the inflation was that high, the inflation,
But we
come
see,
on.
it just doesn't.
Yeah, but we
maybe we can
refuse.
think
I think we can
stay
refuse.
silent.
I don't know what.
Let me do the research on that because I don't know where they are in the rate making process. Because if the PUC hasn't approved, we could always send
I
a
think
letter.
they approved it.
Yeah,
It's
well,
kind
then
of
I
odd
think
it
there's
gets
very
approved
little
with
we can.
like,
Yeah.
no notice, we don't, it's like after the fact, they say, oh, by the way.
I'm sure they followed the legally required process. And as we all know from the work that we do, sometimes people don't, even though we have public notice, even though we provide lots of notice, even though we talk about it everywhere, not everybody notices what we're doing until it affects them personally. So
Yes, exactly.
and so I don't know that I would want to make a statement that they didn't follow the process. They probably did, and we were probably all just not as dialed into the process because we had other stuff that we were
But
working
why
on.
But the
they
process-
didn't tell us?
Yeah, if the process doesn't make it in front of,
Yeah, like-
community leaders, then there's
Yes.
something wrong with the process. And
Yes.
maybe they're following ODOT's process.
Again, let me do some research about what they did or didn't do.
It went before the Public Utilities Commission,
And,
and
you know, we
the
can-
Business Journal reported on it, and
And we can
no
go
one
to
is
their
happy.
headquarters.
And they tried to slough it off as being, well, these are the higher fire risks and the different things that we have in Oregon, and they're going after it. And it's just like, and also, actually, a big part of this is the requirement to have renewable energy and off of fossil fuels. So frankly, the policymakers have really been the ones who have made most of this chunk. So, what?
Yeah, no,
With the League of Oregon Cities and try to get some, a group together to, just to fight back, yeah.
Yeah, we should talk to all the other municipalities and ask to boycott PGE. That's the thing, we're not paying.
We're going to keep our lights off.
Yeah,
We are not.
yeah, we turn the light off.
You can come
and
over
we go candle.
We'll show them.
For like, we can say, for example, 5 days without light.
Start burning trees down.
You
and,
know, yeah.
Heating
No.
your house and whatever.
Okay, we are going to adjourn the city council meeting and call to order the Redevelopment Agency LORA meeting. First item on the agenda here, the only item is item 15.1. This is LORA Resolution 23-04. Again, public hearing, a mirror of Resolution 23-41. We'll start with a review of the hearing procedures by Ms. Osnick.
Thank you. As Manager Bennett just said, same rules, but nevertheless, for the record, I will very quickly read them again. I'm your LORA counsel, Ellen Osnack. Now is the time set for the public hearing on LORA Resolution 2304. This resolution would amend the rules regarding the Lake Oswego public contract. It's a legislative decision. That's generally a policy decision within your discretion, but even though the decision is discretionary, it must comply with the applicable state laws around contracting as well as administrative rules. Our hearing process will begin with a presentation by staff. Testimony that will be received from the public. Individuals will be allowed up to 5 minutes. Recognized neighborhood associations, homeowner associations, government agencies, or other incorporated public interest organizations will be allowed up to 10 minutes. The time limit shall not include the time taken up with questions by council or responses to such questions. Any person in attendance may cede his or her time for testimony to another person, but in no case shall any person's testimony be increased to greater than 10 minutes. Are there any conflicts of interest that anyone needs to declare?
No.
Seeing none, we're ready for the staff report.
I think the council remembers my previous presentation. I'll just incorporate that here and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions?
Thank
for
you,
Mr.
Sean.
Moon?
I'd like to move to adopt
Hold
LORA.
on, we have to have public hearing.
Oh, we haven't done
Sorry,
public
I
hearing
know,
yet,
I know.
sorry.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. I'll ask if there's anyone here who would like to testify on this resolution. Okay, seeing none, thank you, Carrie. Ms. Linder, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'd like to move to adopt LORA Resolution 2304.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. With that, we'll Redevelopment Agency meeting adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving. Information from Laura.
No, John.